Welcome to our episode of Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets today. Today I have a conversation with Adam Yarnell, a longtime FloQaster who started his career at PwC, then moved over to FloQast into the BDR role, which is an entry-level sales role, found his way to management, decided he didn't necessarily love management the most, and went back to an individual contributor role, before then ultimately shipping off to Australia to help us launch big things down in Australia. So today's conversation is really awesome. You get to learn more about Adam's whole journey into accounting, out of accounting, through FloQast, and everything he's accomplished. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Really informative. I know I thoroughly enjoyed catching up with Adam today. I want to welcome Adam Yarnell to the program here. Adam, welcome. I'm really excited to have you on the show here, and you've had an incredible run at FloQast. So I think for today, we wanted to spend some time chatting about that. But I'm going to let you take it from the top. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And maybe before we get into like the nerdy professional stuff, a little personal stuff, like where'd you grow up, born or raised, all that kind of stuff. Let's go.
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and chat about accounting and FloQast and my career journey. I'm not a person that loves talking about myself, so apologize for any of the listeners here, but we'll get through it, and yeah, excited to have a conversation.
Appreciate you agreeing to do this. Yeah, yeah, you're certainly not one to boast about yourself or anything like that, but all that said, you have a very impressive story, so we definitely wanted to have you on here to tell it, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California, basically lived in the greater LA region my whole life. Grew up fairly normal childhood, playing all the sports, but I was always really interested in math, finance, and money. And that's ultimately what I always pictured myself doing was, something involving finance, money. I didn't know what it would be, but I went to a really small university called University of Redlands, which no one has probably ever heard of. My high school is actually bigger than the university that I studied at.
Whoa! What's the student body? How much?
At Redlands, it was including some of the grad programs. It was 2,500 when I was there, so very, very tiny. Like I had, in accounting, right? I had classes where I was 10, 12 people in it. My entire accounting major in my class was 25 people.
Wow. Did you like that? You like the small school style?
I did. I think it was really good for me, coming from such a large high school where I had math classes in high school that were 40 people plus, right? And you're definitely just a number at that place. And I think it was really good for me. I ultimately, decided at Redlands because I wanted to continue running cross country there. And that was kind of the only option for me to do that. I never, ever pictured myself at a small school. I always wanted to have the, big brand name school where, I could for years on later down the line, rep USC or Cal or, UCLA, whatever it was, right? And have that school spirit. And so that is something that I didn't get with Redlands, but I wouldn't change a thing, right? Being able to go to such an intimate setting and actually be cared about. And kind of led me into the accounting path and ultimately got me to the Big Four. So I wouldn't change a thing, but there's definitely some trepidation going into something that was so small and was so intimate, when I had always been able to kind of pass through at high school and not be looked at if I didn't want to.
Right. Yeah. You can just kind of float by, sit in the back of the class. As long as you're having good grades, you're not going to get bothered or anything like that. And then you're running cross country at the same time. Right. So presumably they gave you a scholarship or allowed you on the team to go to Redlands. And that was part of what pushed you in that direction.
Yeah, they don't really offer athletic scholarships, but there's ways for them to kind of offer you some grants and stuff. And ultimately, I got along with the cross country coach there pretty well. And I just felt like my time running from high school kind of got cut short, and so I wanted to at least pursue that for a little bit. I only ended up running there for a short time at Redlands because got into other things, but.
Yeah. Running for long stretches can be a lot more boring than the rest of college. So I'm not,
exactly.
I don't blame you too much for that.
Waking up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning for my long runs was just not something that was tenable at a certain point.
Dude, I don't know how student athletes do it. I respect student athletes to the next degree. It must be so hard to have that discipline in college with everything that's going on around you. Back to you. So you said you liked finances and math growing up. Can you remember like when did you decide you liked finances? Was it like you got your first allowance and you were like, oh, okay, like what's the childhood memory there?
Pretty much, yeah. I remember like one of my first toys was this little like safe. I couldn't have been like more than 4 or 5 years old. And I'd find money on the street, little coins and stuff, and I'd put it in that safe. And I had like a little combo code on it, and it was just this little tiny plastic safe. And I just remember like trying to find money around and collect allowance and just like save it and store it in that safe. Um, and so yeah, I always just loved having money and kind of being around money for which sounds terrible now, but that was like kind of an early foundation for me, and really is what took me into the finance route. And then ultimately, when I got to college, I had a friend that was a couple years older, and he said, finance is great. You can always do that. You can always get into banking, but if you really want a job like right after college and you want great experience, like you should look into auditing. So I took my first accounting class, second semester freshman year, and had a really great teacher and really great mentor in that class who happened to be the head of the accounting program at Redlands. And I got along really well with her. I did really well in the class, and I said, all right, well, this seems like a pretty good option for me. And then I saw kind of the graduating seniors, pretty much every one of them had a job. And I was like, if I'm going to this private university that is not cheap, like I want to make sure that I have a job right after college.
Mhm.
And so that kind of led me down the accounting path. Was lucky enough to get a couple internships, after that sophomore year summer, and then ultimately kind of went on to procure a couple more internships. But it was an interesting coming from such a small school, and then I eventually ended up at PwC, because Redlands being so small and almost 2 hours away from LA.
Your
The big
start class at PwC must have been like the size of your grade in college, right?
Yeah,
What?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But the Big Four didn't recruit to Redlands, right? Like
Tell
none
me
of
more
them.
about your internship process. So you said you did a couple internships. Like
Yeah,
after your sophomore year, you'll have to excuse me. I'm the lazy guy who did no internships during college. I wanted to enjoy my summers a little too much. But like, okay, tell me more. How'd you end up there?
yeah. So the mid-tier firms, and kind of smaller regional firms recruited at Redlands, and the head of the accounting program at Redlands, she was really great at networking. Her husband was at Deloitte, still was a partner at Deloitte, but she did really great networking. She actually spent time working at the SEC. Just a great person. And so she brought in firms, mostly regional firms from the area, to come like recruit at Redlands, which I know for everyone out there listening from larger schools, that's just like table stakes, like that just happens. But at Redlands, for most majors, like that does not happen, where they have employers coming and actually like having telling you about their firm, and having you apply, and some of us are lucky enough to get those internships. So I did a couple kind of sophomore, I think they call them like leadership programs, or something, or at least they used to, right, at some of the mid-tier firms. So it was actually McGladrey back then, where
Oh,
where I
okay.
did where I did one, and after that I was kind of like, yeah, this is nice, but I went to the smaller school. I always picture myself at a bigger university, and I just want to be at the Big Four. There was just something about it where I was like, I just want to be at the top tier, right? Like maybe it's just my competitive nature, but I was like, I just want to get up there. So I essentially took it upon myself to apply on my own, drive to LA to do all of the interviews. Like I made it out of Redlands, into one of the Big Four where they didn't recruit there. And so that was kind of my pitch in all of the interview process of, look, you come to USC and you go to UCLA and UCSD and all of these bigger schools and actually actively recruit there. I'm actually coming to you, knocking on your door, like I want an internship, right? And I feel like I deserve it. So I was lucky enough to get that internship at PwC my junior year. Got lined up with a really great relationship partner, who still keep in contact with this day. And then, from that point was able to get the offer for a full-time job at PwC upon graduation. And so I ended or started my senior year in college with already having a job, which led to a really nice senior year.
Man, no wonder you're good at selling already. Damn, that's an impressive story. Yeah, usually it's, the big four is like put on a platter for so many people at the bigger
Right.
universities. And it's almost like you're kind of picking which firm you want to go to. I remember that during my interview process. A lot of kids were like, not sure if I want to go to this one or this one. And it was because they're generally USC people, right? That's how it goes down. So that's a cool story. How did you go about, like, did you just apply online? Were you like on, what'd you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did apply online, didn't have much success with that. And then so I tapped into my network of some of my friends at other schools and got into like the names of recruiters that were going to these other schools and then worked my way in that way to the interview process. And then once I got to the interview process, right, I was just kind of betting on myself and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can do this.
Yeah, let's go, dude. Great. Great. Oh man, that's such a killer piece of advice. Like, one of the things that blows me away, just to sorry to take a quick tangent, is how few people really go above and beyond to apply to jobs. They'll just accept going through the regular channels, and if no one gets back to me, like, it is what it is. One of the things that people don't realize is, like, when you apply through those channels, there's generally a lot of noise. A lot of people have applied. There can be process system breakdowns. Like, it could be as innocent as that. It's not always like no, you're not good enough for a job at this place. Like, but put in a little effort to get an introduction to at least, like, get your foot in the door with the interview process. And oftentimes it goes way better than that. So, like, I'm not surprised at all that you were able to skirt around the lack of a connection, got your connection. And then once you're in the interview process, then it's truly on the merit of how good are you at interviewing and your credentials. And, like, clearly you're killer at it. So not surprised at all. Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And was the relationship manager at PwC Christian?
It was.
The partner,
DJ.
Christian. All right. Christian's the man. Small world story here. So Christian audited me back in the day when I was an accountant. And then I think Christian liked me, but then we hired enough people who worked for him to where maybe Christian doesn't love me anymore. We'll see. But
I do remember an awkward moment. I couldn't have been a couple months into FloQast, and I had just left PwC, and he was my relationship partner. And I think we were looking at auditors, or at least he was coming into pitch, and kind of cross paths with him in that old office on Ventura Boulevard. And we didn't have much of a conversation there, but we've since kind of mended things a little bit.
Well, it's as a partner, I'm sure it, like, stings to lose someone who's really good, but you also got to be supportive of what they're doing. And I'll tell you, it was a little more awkward even from my perspective, because he came in and he said hi to like 5 different people. Right, that, like, used to work for him, and I'm like, the gravity of the poaching hadn't quite hit me until that moment, and I was like, oh shit, okay, I feel kind of bad about this, but at the same time, he's good at hiring people and hires great people, and they're really smart, and so yeah, I guess a blessing and a curse at the same time. Anyway, all right, well, let's move on to that. So, like, in my opinion, I thought Christian was great, and he would be like a great guy to work for. So, okay, he was your relationship manager during your intern years. So how did that play into, like, when you joined full time?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I was one of the interns that was kind of pegged in as a top tier or high performer kind of partner track, or at least that's where Christian wanted to push me. So I got put on a pretty heavy workload my first year, to be honest. I had 4 busy season clients. So I rolled in, you start basically beginning of August, and by the end of August, I was already on a large media company with a September year end. And the mascot is a mouse. So that was my first job. And
oh boy, what an engagement! Yeah,
and I was stuck on the consumer products side of that. So I was in quite literally a little back office with no windows. And I know you hear stories about, putting auditors in like a closet with no windows and stuff, but like all the other Disney teams had like pretty nice offices. It was just this one team that I happened to get put on auditing cash in like a room with no windows. So I had a very like generic, first year entry into accounting or into audit, right? Where here's cash. the cool thing about auditing that company was the materiality was so high. I just felt like, okay, this is like very easy because pretty much everything I find is immaterial and I can just like move on, right? So I did that, and then I went into directly into. I actually didn't even finish the Disney audit with the team, and I got rolled into another job, which was a November year end. So a cruise ship company, and that had me commuting from downtown LA to Santa Clarita. I was
Oh
commuting to
my.
Santa Clarita every day. It's like I think it was like 36 miles away, and you have to be like 40 miles away to like get hotel accommodation. So I was just doing that commute back and forth every
Uh,
single day.
yeah.
Uh, and then, just after a while, that just breaks you down. I did actually get really good exposure at that one where, I got out of cash, got to, see more of the balance sheet. The cruise ship industry is pretty interesting. There is some unique accounting with, fuel consumption. If I would have stayed on that job a little bit longer, they actually send, you know, two auditors out into a cruise. So you go on a 7 day cruise to audit like inventory on board a cruise ship. They had a
So
safe on the cruise ship. So there were some like nice things about being on that job. The first year was not the person that they were sending on the cruise though.
yeah, that's that. Usually, for those not aware, usually the staff is who is doing the inventories at these places. But that's a very cool inventory. So yeah, I'm sure it was
Yeah.
the senior or the manager even doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So did that actually completed that
So
job.
just to be clear, so your first job, the entertainment company, that was your very first job coming out of training, and it was like back office, bank recs. That's what you focused on. Then you moved over to a cruise line, and you got some more exposure down the balance sheet. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually really enjoyed, being on that on the cruise ship company, despite the commute back and forth, and it's LA traffic as well, both ways. Um, so yeah,
That's a recipe for burnout. Like anyone who lives in LA
uh,
knows, you can't be working busy season hours and commuting just under
yeah,
the corporate limit for getting a hotel room. That's a bad combo.
yeah. And I'm trying to do my CPA test as much as I can during this time as well. And but eventually roll off end of January onto a 12/31 year end tech company in Playa Vista. So that commute was actually worse than going to Santa Clarita just because I was living in like Arts District, like downtown LA. And so being on the 10, there's just no great way to get there. So that commute was actually way worse than going to Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
And it's only like 12 miles, but right, it took me an hour and a half to get there in the mornings. And the commute home was fine because I was always staying, until after rush hour. Um,
That's the only reason you enjoy working late is because at least I don't have to sit in rush hour. That's
yeah.
nice.
But that was actually my first exposure to a tech company, right? It was a tech company, and I'd go into the office and see these like amazing offices where they had catered lunch every day, and the auditors got access to that. They had walls of all the snacks and food and everything that they wanted. They had a nice rooftop and a putting green up there, right? And I was like, this is really cool. Like I gotta find my way into tech someday. Um, and right as I was rolling off of that job actually into a private 12/31 telecom company, um, that's when I kind of met you, or you reached out over LinkedIn, or someone sent a LinkedIn message for you to me.
Nope,
And it,
dude, that was me. That was me. Everyone thinks it was like, bro, I didn't have an assistant at that time. That was all me BDRing on LinkedIn, trying to find BDRs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so it was right around that time, and you hit me at a really good time, where I had just completed my third busy season as a first year, and I was rolling into my fourth and final one. And at that point, I was on track to bill the most hours in my class, at least the EMC Tech class at PwC. So I was just absolutely, working crazy hours. Um, and it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. It was just, it wasn't all that I thought it was going to be. I was learning a lot, but it was burnout, right? I was just working so many hours, and the commutes were killing me. So you caught me at a soft spot, and I ended up taking a call with you.
I'm glad you did. I'm very glad you did. So, you know, you guys had talked about you being on the partner track early on, and was the idea of putting you on the different jobs to like get exposure to different industries or what's the, because it feels weird to be like, this guy's got it. I want to make him a partner, and now we're going to grind him down in the first year. Like, was it intentional? Like, tell me more. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was to give me exposure, kind of as I was making my amends and leaving PwC. Actually, it was kind of had the conversation of, well, we understand your first year was not ideal, scheduling, but we thought you would handle it, type of thing, and that's the conversation I was having. Next year is going to be a lot different. We're gonna have you on, you're gonna go back to the cruise ship company because you really liked that team. And then we'll just keep you on the tech company as well. And we have Disney covered, or we have that media company covered. And you can have you can have your kind of two clients like going forward, and you can really grow within those clients. But at that point, I was kind of already sold on FloQast, to be honest, and there wasn't much that they could do to keep me.
Yeah. It's not an apples to apples comparison. Yeah. So very different things.
Yeah.
So you worked in different industries with different teams, with different commutes, different reporting requirements. It seemed like
Yep.
when you looked at the work, what mattered to you the most? Was it like, what got you excited about a job that you were going to go? What made you like the mouse company versus the cruise company versus the tech company more? And like, what was most important?
Yeah, I think like I kind of got caught into the trap of like, the big names were going to be cool, and then I quickly figured out like the actual day to day is what really matters. Like saying that you audit this big company, no one is actually going to think that's cool. It's only cool in your own head for a little bit. What I really liked was like learning about different businesses, right? Like consumer products, like. I learned, only a little bit about that, but going from consumer products to a cruise ship company and very different accounting that, was, something that was very industry specific, right? And then going to a tech company and getting exposure to cap software and just getting into that industry, and then going into a telecom company, which was selling hardware products, right? Like, yeah. I got a full exposure. So learning about different businesses, how different businesses are run, kind of the hierarchy within these businesses. I really enjoyed that part of it. And I kind of always found myself talking to the clients and getting an understanding of the lay of the land at the client. And I loved my teams, but I spent a lot of time eating lunch with the clients, right? And like building my relationships with the clients and learning about, their role and their path. And I was always interested in okay, if I'm not going to be a partner, what are my avenues? What are my paths? What do you like? Tell me about this business. Why you joined this business? Those types of things. So I really loved that part of auditing, right? Like you're really in the weeds of a business, learning about how different businesses work, and I got exposure to 4 different industries, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's the silver lining on it is you got exposure to 4 different ones, and yes, you worked a lot, but that meant you got like more experience within those different industries. That's totally cool. That's really I haven't heard anyone else say that they would get lunch with their clients. That is generally, but as you say it, that's like such no-brainer advice to me. I mean, you spend all day and all night with your team anyway. You're obviously going to have a relationship and get to know them. Why not take the hour break at lunch to pick their advice on career and all that kind of stuff, but also just like have a better relationship so the audit is smoother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was going to eat dinner with my team no matter what,
There you go. Yeah.
it was a time for me to almost have a little bit of a break from being in the audit room with the same people, from 9 until 9 every day, eating lunch with them. It was a break for me, right? Of I got to go talk to someone else, learn about something else, like get my head out of these spreadsheets and this audit for a little bit.
How'd your team feel about it? Were they like, "Oh, Adam's too good for us. He doesn't want to hang out with us"? Or
I did get a little bit of feedback from during some of my like reviews after the jobs of like, is he really bought into the team environment and stuff? And I was like, I don't think that's fair, because I was very much a team player. I got all my work done in a timely manner, and I was very bought into everything with the team. I just wanted exposure to the clients. I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity that I had in front of me, like speaking with other people.
I asked because I'm actually not surprised that came through. So like if I were to do that, which now I wish I had, man, like I wish I stole this from your playbook. That's really, really smart. I'd just be like to the team, like, hey, audit team, love you guys, but I spent enough hours with you. I'm gonna go hang out with the client for lunch. Like I'll see you. Like that's not a big deal, but just address it, make it kind of funny or whatever, and move on. Very smart. Okay, so then I hit you at the right time. We convinced you tech and sales was a better opportunity for you, which quite frankly, I totally agree. I think it is.
Sure.
Why don't you talk about your first role at FloQast, what it's like onboarding at a company with like 25 people versus coming out of PwC. We were so small at the time.
So went right into a BDR role. And basically my first day at FloQast was, here's a demo of FloQast. So I think it was a recorded demo from you or Zoo that had kind of that was our first exposure, right? This is what we're going to be selling. And then it was like kind of a week of learning some talk tracks, learning about systems. And I think week 2, I was like on the phones, like, all right, let's just like get going. Versus PwC was a 2-week boot camp with like at PwC, like literally 1,000 people from the entire region staying at a hotel in downtown LA. And it's very organized. It's very structured. You're at a table group. You don't leave that table group where, I come into FloQast and the company is all of, 25 people. And it's me and one other BDR onboarding at this time with our manager. And it's a very intimate setting. The BDR team is obviously great at that point. So easy to just like chat with people actually doing the job, which I always found really helpful instead of being stuck with a bunch of people who are in the same position as you and no one actually knows what's going to happen once we get out of training, right? So like being in what we called the barn was like an invaluable experience, and we'll certainly talk about this, but being able to listen to the conversations that people are happening as I'm doing that onboarding it was like absolutely massive. And it gives you over that kind of fear of, are people actually going to like, is this really how it happens if everyone's just like cold calling, talking on the phones? And that was a little bit of a hesitation for me, right? Of like, you're really just sitting in a group of people and everyone's going to be paying attention to you. And in reality, right, it's like the new hires are going to be listening to you for a little bit, but after that, everyone's just doing their own thing. And you get over that fear of cold calling pretty quick.
Yeah, people seem to get over it pretty quickly. Oh, hey, man, but it's a fair thing. You don't want everyone hearing you, especially because sometimes you can bomb on those early calls and it can be a little embarrassing. But I think if you end up having a good culture around it, make fun of it a little bit and like joke about it, it's totally, everyone screws up early calls. It just is what it is. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So BDR land. So you're doing a bunch of cold calling, getting to know the market, prospects, booking demos. And then next step was into management. So tell me why you wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think what originally attracted me to management was just my like original passion for being a BDR. I really enjoyed my time being a BDR. It was every call is I felt was a little competition, of like getting someone on the phone that's not expecting you to call, has probably never heard of FloQast, back in 2017, when I was a BDR. And at the end of the call, it could be 5-10 minute call, right? They've agreed to the demo. You've gotten all this information, and hopefully they're really excited about popping onto that demo. So I really enjoyed my time as a BDR and having that kind of competition of, the next person that picks up the phone, like I'm going to get them on a demo. Like I just know I can do it. And yeah, that's what fueled me into the management position, where it's like I love kind of the BDR team so much. I want to try to build the next generation of BDRs and then that are going to get promoted into the various different sales departments at the company.
There must be, well, I know there is for me, but there must be a lot of pride when you manage someone, you see them get promoted, move on to like a new role. And that's a interesting part of that job is like your job is to make people so good that they then leave you. It's a weird thing, right? It's a tough thing to balance.
Totally. And that is one one tough part about the role. I think the other part of it, and why I eventually went into the sales engineering path, is because I wanted to get back on the phones. I needed the interaction with clients. I needed that competition with someone that was on the other side and convincing them to buy FloQast, or convincing them FloQast is the best product for you. Here's all the reasons why it's going to help you, why you need to buy FloQast. And I really missed that, and I didn't get that at the in the BDR position. So really lucky that kind of as I was going through that, the sales engineering department, was opening up, and forever grateful to Siobhan for taking me under his wing. And I don't think I could pick a better mentor to have. And I really think the sales engineering part of my career at FloQast is going to be the most important years of my career. Right, I learned so much. Built, scaled a department, learned about actually selling, right? As a BDR, you're booking time, right? And there's a little sales aspect to it, but working hand in hand with AEs, with sales leadership, and being the product expert on the call. I learned a lot. I learned a lot in those 4 years that I was in the sales engineering department. And like I said, I think looking back, those would be kind of some of the best years of my career.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, for starters, you got to work with Siobhan. Yeah. And if you haven't listened, we have another episode with Siobhan talking about his career at FloQast. And so you're looking at the guy here, Adam, who helped him ramp up that sales engineering department. And I mean, it was big for us. For those who don't know, sales engineer is it's someone who helps our account executives who, here at FloQast, we have accountants who are account executives and close and sell, but they don't know necessarily every single detail or every nuance of different industries, everything within the product, every reporting requirement, all this kind of stuff. So you need someone with like Adam Yarnell's knowledge, Siobhan Patel's knowledge to come in and kind of plug any gaps from there. So you're really the total trusted expert on the call. You're generally running the demo, answering the more detailed questions. You're not involved in like the closing, doing the ROI analysis, negotiating pricing, anything like that. I would say it's more the fun components of selling and understanding if we could help solve their problems and things like that. So, well, man, I could not agree more. And then I would argue that set you up for the next jump in your career, which I would say is maybe the biggest one that you made. So tell us more about what happened after sales engineering.
Yeah, so I actually, the same thing happened where I moved into sales engineering management, and I was managing some sales engineers. And I got to the point where it's like, man, I miss being on the phone. I miss being in the deals again. And it kind of coincided with us opening an office in a new region, and that new region was Australia. So kind of got the opportunity to make a big leap. You don't realize how far Australia is away from everything else in the world until you actually get down here. It is very, very far away. And now I've moved into the full sales side where I'm the account executive, first account executive down here in Australia, and building a team. So been here for 14 months now, and started it was me and a GM, and now we're up to 14 people in the office, and business is going really well down here.
Yeah, it's been awesome watching you ramp that office up. And just for some behind the scenes intel, when we decided we wanted to go into Australia and really ramp it up, we had a ton of success in London by sending a long-term FloQaster, Adam Zuha, out to launch that office. I think just like sending the knowledge, the culture, the DNA, like all of that's really important. And behind the scenes at the C-level, we were having discussions around who we could do that with in Australia. And you were like the number one name brought up, but no one thought you'd actually do it for some reason. And so when you said you were interested in it, we were all like, hell yeah, let's go. This is perfect. And then, pairing you with a local, Jason on the GM side to really help ramp everything up. That feels like a great combination that you've been able to kind of execute on and make happen. So I don't know. Thank you for taking the risk and being open to it. And I hope I think you'll also reflect on this as being one of the funner times in your FloQast career as well. One of the more unique things that you did.
It's definitely, it's definitely a challenge, right? It's, I think when Ken approached me about it, I agreed, like on the call. I was just like, yeah. And then I was like, wait, hold on, let me think about this for a second. Let me go talk to my wife and actually talk to my family about this. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like the first words that came out of my mouth was when Ken asked me, was like, yeah, Okay, wait, let me actually think
Nice.
about this a little bit more. And it happened so fast, right? Like I think it was actually good where I didn't have to think about things too much, and I could kind of hit the ground running and really see what I've or use what I've seen for 6 years at FloQast. We haven't always made every single right step. So learning from some of the mistakes that we've seen scaling and growing the business, obviously leaning on Zoo for opening up that office has made the transition a lot easier. But it's hard. It's hard being this far away, and I think that's the biggest challenge. Is right now it's a 17-hour time difference, and it's really hard to be this far away from friends, family, from all the people in the FloQast office that I love. I'm used to
Yeah.
being. It's a big juxtaposition of when I started at FloQast, being in the barn, right? Like with BDRs, where I could like put my arms out and touch two people, to now being here in Australia, right? Like those same people who I was in the barn with are now what feels like a day away.
Yeah. Well, they are. That's the
Yeah,
reality of it. And yeah, no, I can only imagine. I mean, obviously, I haven't taken the leap to go to Australia, but that's
when are you coming to visit?
definitely tough. I'm coming in July, the
Nice.
third week of July. We've booked it. I've been told it's winter in
It is
Australia.
winter.
My counter argument is I live in Southern California, so I don't care that much. I have summer all the time around here, so I'm good. I'm good to visit Australia in the winter or whatever. I'd much rather bring Harper, get to hang out. We get to spend like by bringing Harper, I get to spend more time there, so we can be there for a longer period of time. So it's gonna be a good time hanging out with all you guys down there in
Yeah.
Sydney. Sydney, I'm
Sydney.
looking forward to it.
Sydney's pretty much the
Yep.
same weather as LA, so the winters aren't bad.
That's gonna be great. All right, man. So you take the job. Tell me about like just well, I'd love to know just literally what you did for starters. Like you hit the ground there, and what were your next moves? And then that was a really interesting comment around like you could learn from some of the mistakes that we made scaling here. I'm curious, like, and if I did something stupid, that's totally fine. We learn from mistakes all the time. Like, what are some of the things that we messed up that you saw early on that you decided to not do that in Australia?
Yeah, yeah. So first, I kind of when I accepted the job, we pretty much started um, cold calling and trying to run opportunities in Australia from Los Angeles. So did that for 4 or 5 months until as we were working through visa stuff. So hit the ground running over here, and it was Jason and I just trying to get the word out about FloQast. So kind of week one, we were already trying to meet with partners, tapping into Jason's connections, and really try to drum up some knowledge of FloQast is now here, right? Let's get a marketing out there to be able to say FloQast has landed, because really there's only one other option that was out here, was the incumbent and competitor. And so we really wanted to attack the market and catch them by surprise. And so I, we got off to a really good start, and that allowed us to bring in some local BDRs, which is a big step for us. I think one thing that I've been like extremely conscious of is finding the correct talent, and carrying over all of the people that I've seen become so successful at FloQast and be the leaders, and tap into why are they so successful at FloQast? What's the personality? What drives them? And try to look for those traits within the individuals that we hire. And so I've been lucky enough to be part of every single hiring decision that we've made here. And I really look for the characteristics that I see in Siobhan and Zoo and Mandy and Andy and Nico, and right, all these all stars that we have across the board who started out as BDRs and now are our sales leaders, right? That's ultimately what I'm trying to hire for, is like this group of BDRs that we bring in that are going to be our first hires, or have been our first hires. Like we have to make sure that they are rock stars, right? We have to make sure that they are, when we look back in 4 or 5 years, they're going to be our sales managers, and they're going to be the ones carrying this office. And the easiest way to do that is looking into who has been successful at FloQast and why, and trying to find those characteristics within the individuals that we're hiring.
That's super smart. Can you look at a candidate and almost be like, oh, this is the next Mandy, or this is the next Nico? Like, is that kind of how you can think about things now?
Totally. And I have to I have to remember, they're not Mandy and they're not Andy and they're not Nico because those are really big shoes to fill. They're going to be their own person, but hopefully they have, some of that Mandy and Andy and Nico and Siobhan and Zoo in them. Um, but yeah, it is hard not to draw those comparisons because ultimately that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Hey man, we've hired a lot of great people. There are more great people out there. You very well could have handled the next Zoo, the next Yarnell, the next Nico, the next Andy, the next Mandy, all that good stuff. It's going to be. I'm really confident in your ability to hire, and I think when you pick your head up in 4 years, and you're probably back in the United States, hanging out with us here, and you've left a legacy with a great office and great people you've hired out there. Like, dude, I think you're going to be so proud of everything you've accomplished out there.
Yeah, I think so too.
But
I think that was my biggest thing and what I think we talked about this too. Is like I want to leave my impact on the company on FloQast, right? And making the move to Australia, yeah, it's a big leap. It's far away. I've talked about how far away it is, but I think it was the best way for me to make the biggest impact on the company. And I'd rather me do that than anyone else. I'd rather bet on myself.
I wanted to bet on you the most as well. So thank you for doing that. All right. I kind of cut you off there. So you got there, you hit the ground. It was really about like awareness, more, BDRing, but in many ways we early on treated BDRs like a marketing function,
Yep.
at FloQast, right? So you kind of took a similar approach. Also probably driven in large part by not getting a big marketing budget available to you. So sort of out of necessity. Is that a fair statement?
Fair statement. But like, when I was a BDR in 2017, you call someone, hey, call them from FloQast, we're a close management company, and they go, what's close management? I never heard of close management software. Like that's pretty much what it is down here, right? And so like the conversations that I was having, 7 years ago or 6 years ago as a BDR, right? Like I'm able to kind of train and coach the BDRs out here. It's like, look, we've been through this before. It's about awareness. Once we get the awareness out there, right? Like we're going to actually take off like a rocket ship because there's a whole education factor with the BDR position where you are doing a little bit of marketing and that's okay.
Yep. Yep. Totally. I remember our bar initially was like very low for who we'd run a demo for because we almost thought the demo was like a piece of marketing. It was just like we'd show anyone the software, anyone in the world who would want to look at our software, we would do that. I think as you get a little bigger, maybe some more qualifying and disqualifying, and not everyone needs to head in that direction. But yeah, early on, that's how we did it. All right, can you think of any other things you've done differently?
Yes.
And before we do that, what's the structure of the team today? So you said 14. So can you just, for the audience, let them know like what that group looks like now?
Yeah. So we brought over implementation, a team over here for implementations from the US. We brought over account management / customer success from the US. So two, veterans at FloQast. Jonah actually managing customer success and account management, basically everything.
Former BDR.
Post setup, former BDR. He's been at FloQast for even longer than me.
Yeah, it's so wild. Jonah's been with us forever.
He's been with us, and he's done LA, he's done New York. Now he's doing Australia. So having him and him really helping with the hiring, with the coaching, he gets in and does role plays with BDRs because I feel like you never lose that motion of being able to cold call and do that BDR position. So having him here has been invaluable. So GM, we have a head of partnerships. We brought over Kat, another long time FloQaster who was on our marketing team in LA. And then went out to London and led marketing in the UK and EMEA. I've been lucky enough to convince her to move to Australia now. So she just got here, and then we have 4 BDRs that are, and a 5th one coming soon.
So for those who weren't counting at home, that's 4 former US FloQasters who are now part of the office of 14 people in Australia. The 4 people from headquarters, we're all in different roles at FloQast. So we have this beautiful, like, complementary skill set from the culture of the United States that we've been able to send first to London, and now it's like clearly being built out in Australia. And to me, that's like one of the biggest keys for success is having great people across all functions. And that's why your team out there feels so similar to FloQast US, like meeting them all at Go. And so I'm just like, they're just part of the company. It doesn't feel like there's any weird cultural divide or any difference. It does feel very normal.
I totally agree. I come into the office every day, which I know is not the norm in the US or maybe even in London, but I
Kind of
love
wish it
being.
was.
Yeah, I love being in the office now, right? This totally reminds me of 2017 when I started, at FloQast, of just the culture that we have. It's so fun. It's such a team mentality, right? Like it's clear that everyone is working towards the same goal, right? Like the number one thing for everyone right now is hitting the numbers, right? And making sure we are signing as many clients as we can, whether that's Cat in marketing, our partnerships team, implementation team is rooting us on and like asking for more clients to come in, right? Like, so it feels really good where, as the size of FloQast is in the US, right? Ultimately, that's the goal. But it's so many different departments working on different things. Like here, we're such a tight knit group where everyone can kind of focus on let's bring in the most business as we can. It feels really special.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. I miss those days. It gets very different, and you get to relive it again. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should probably tie this back to accounting a little bit, I guess. But it is really interesting. Like in your time in learning about accounting, and your time in audit, and then even your time like spending with accountants as you've been selling to them and working with them and ramping them up who we've hired. Like, what do you think you've learned over the years from accounting that's been able to help you in your current role?
What I mentioned at the beginning of this was, learning about business, right? And I think I've mentioned this to you in the past where, I feel like I don't need to go to business school, right? Like being at FloQast for so long and like, going through all the rounds of funding and how open and transparent you are with the whole company of, this is what we're doing. This is how we are going to, strategically build our company. And this is what we're going to do with our funding. And this is our next play, right? Like, I feel like I've had a business course throughout this. And right, that's ultimately what I loved about being an auditor is learning about businesses. So it's been a really fun place for me to kind of take the thing that I liked most about my previous career and then come into FloQast. And like, that is something that exists across, all these different roles that I've been having, right? Is, seeing a company go from being a part of a company that went from 25 to over 700 employees now, right? It's been a really, really cool experience.
Well, you've played a huge role in it, and I can't thank you enough for all the risks you've taken at FloQast and all the hard work you've put into making us, as successful as we are today. So I'm gonna get choked up, but thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it.
No, I mean, it's yeah. Well, I'll try not to get choked up as well, but it's been an awesome ride, and it's I just so happy that I responded to your LinkedIn message.
Me too. Likewise. All right, man. We're gonna call it there. We've covered enough time to get everyone their CPE credits. If you're not aware, you can hop over to Flowcademy with a Q and get your CPE credits if you watch it on that platform. And yeah, man, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know it is Q4 for Australia right now, so I know you got a lot of stuff going on in terms of closing business, and I wish you all the best. I hope you have a big quarter.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks again. Have a good one, Adam.
All right. Cheers.